Hello, everyone, and welcome for joining us. My name is Rehana, and I'm a learning manager at the Raspberry Pi Foundation, and I work on Experience AI. And today we're very excited to welcome you to our very first webinar about AI Quests and how we have embedded AI Quest into the Experience AI resources. We'll talk about this very exciting game and how it introduces several important AI literacy concepts. I'm also joined by Emma. Emma, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Emma, and I'm also a learning manager at the Experience AI team.
We're also joined by a stellar panel of researchers and people who have worked on the game and who have worked on the pedagogies behind the game. So you've met Emma as well. So Emma is my colleague. We're also joined by Alon. Alon, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Alon. I am part of a team at Google Research that drives different initiatives related to AI literacy. And amongst them is this project that we'll talk about today, AI Quest. I have the privilege of co-leading this project alongside with my colleague Liat, and I'll pass over to Liat.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liat. I also work at Google Research and co-lead AI Quests and other initiatives along with Alon. And I'll pass it to Dave.
Hello everyone, my name's Dave Cross. I'm a curriculum leader for computer science at North Lupin Academy. We're a large inner city academy teaching students aged 11 to 18 across key stages 3 to 5.
Oh, Joba, you're muted. That's okay. We could go to Victor and then we can go back to Joba.
Hello, everybody. I'm Victor. I'm a associate professor of education at Stanford University in the United States, and I am the faculty lead for an exciting initiative we have at Stanford called the Stanford Accelerator for Learning, specializing in AI and education. And I'm part of the team of which Joba and Kristen will introduce themselves, who are bringing in the research and scholarship around pedagogy and classroom integration. That's making AI Quests really fun and exciting and timely with respect to what we know about learning today. And I'll pass it back to Joba.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joba Disa, and I'm a postdoc at Stanford University supporting this project with Victor and Kristen. And I'll pass it on to Kristen.
Great. My name is Kristen. I'm the Director of Research for the Digital Learning Initiative within Stanford's Accelerator for Learning and lecturer in the Graduate School of Education at Stanford. And I'm very excited to be working on this project.
Amazing. Thank you all for being here. We are very delighted to have you all on board and share your expertise with us as we explore and explain AI Quests to everyone attending. So we will, like you saw, we put everyone in the background, but at certain points during the webinar, we will pull people up who will tell us a little bit more about their research and a little bit more about how they made AI Quest. Now, we're planning a series of very exciting webinars where we will explore the integration of AI Quests into Experience AI, as well as new AI Quests, which are developed and are in the pipeline. The first webinar today is going to give you an overview of Experience AI and what AI Quest is, and also have a little bit of background on the pedagogy that is implemented in the game. In the second webinar, which is next week, so very soon, we're going to connect AI Quest to real-world research, and we're going to talk to researchers and the game designers to explore the game mechanics. And then there will be more webinars as more AI Quests get released, as there are a few in the making, and these webinars will be announced as well then. So today I'm going to give you a very quick overview of what Experience AI is, and also an overview what AI Quest is. Then we're going to give it over to Alon and Liat, who will tell us a little bit more about how they designed it. And then they will give it over to Victor and Joba and Kristen, who will tell us about the pedagogical principles and design choices behind AI Quest. And then we will talk to Dave, who will give us a little bit of insight around how he found piloting the game into his classroom was, and the kind of feedback that he got from his students. And then we will, wrap up and see you all very soon. So let's first start off by looking at Experience AI. And Experience AI is an initiative that we have created here at the Raspberry Pi Foundation in collaboration with Google and Google DeepMind. And Experience AI is an educational program that we developed to offer educators of young students between the ages of 11 and 14 with the resources and the guidance to teach them all about AI and machine learning. And the goal is ultimately to make these complex topics accessible and to inspire the next generation of students to not only use AI, but also understand it and eventually shape it. We've had a tremendous response from the education community towards our resources. And I'll read a few quotes from students and teachers. So some students say that it was empowering, that it showed that it changed their outlook on AI, and that it empowered them with the skills to create their own models and understand what kind of data is needed for that. Some students also say how it changed how they look at AI, and that they now understand and have a better understanding of how AI functions, and that they also are interested now in pursuing more AI-related studies in the future. The teachers who have used the Experience AI resources feel that their students are much more knowledgeable now, and that they can see the importance that AI has in their wider lives. So you can see that students feel empowered and can think more critically about the AI tools around them thanks to the Experience AI resources. And I'm very happy to be able to continue empowering young people and students all over the world with high quality AI literacy resources. And we've just reached about 1.9 million students with our resources. Now, that is what here at RPF we're so happy to be contributing to these AI literacy resources and to help equip students with these skills to be more knowledgeable and more critical users of AI technologies in the future. And that's why we are so happy to be partnering with people at Google Research who continue empowering students with exciting resources as well. So I will give it over to Liat and Alon from here to tell you all about AI Quests and around how they are planning on empowering students with their resources.
Thank you so much, Rihanna. First, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity here to present and to engage educators, like-minded innovators in education around the world. Today, we're basically celebrating a collaboration between Google Research and the Stanford Accelerator for Learning, and the close collaboration with Raspberry Pi Foundation and Google DeepMind. And that collaboration is all about AI Quests. Let me take you on a journey just to kind of orient you to behind the scenes of how this initiative began. And later on, you'll hear more from my colleagues about the way we went into designing this initiative and the thoughtfulness about what we would like the educators and students engaging AI Quests to benefit from this experience. Let me say a few words about Google Research. Next slide, please. Google Research is a multinational research organization that basically is driven by big questions. We're curious. We're people who wake up in the morning asking questions about how could we perhaps benefit the lives and livelihoods of millions of people around the world through the research that we do. And we have teams around the world focused on topics like how could we provide early warning for natural disasters like floods? Other teams are looking into health issues. So for example, how could we perhaps with AI help diagnose diseases early on and accelerate the process of finding out who needs to get care and bring that care the soonest possible. Other teams are looking into discovering biological mechanisms like our brain, all right? Understanding the inner workings of neurons in our mind and try and use, again, our research around AI to help illuminate some of these big questions that are yet to be answered. Next slide, please. So as an organization that is at the forefront of innovation in artificial intelligence, we feel very committed to also addressing the topic of AI literacy. And for many, many years, we've been engaging students and educators around the world because we know that it's really important not to just know how to use products and tools that are driven by AI, but also understand the inner workings, the foundational concepts of artificial intelligence, so that students can be critical thinkers, that they can have a deeper understanding of this technology, and that they can benefit in the future navigating in a world that will be more and more shaped by artificial intelligence. And if we look at the news around the world, certainly at this time of the year where there's a new school year that's begun, there's a lot going on with AI and a lot going on with AI literacy. And so we asked ourselves, next slide, please, how can we as a research organization contribute to the amazing work already being done by amazing organizations and programs just like Experience AI? What could we provide that would be complementary and kind of add value to what they're already doing? And being inspired by the work we do on impact-driven research, by being inspired from the work we're doing on climate and health and science, with AI being the tool, the means to the end of answering those big questions, that's how last year we came up with the concept of AI Quests. Next slide, please. And what we'd like to now do is kind of take you into this experience. It's already available to you and launched, but we want to try and show you the thinking behind it and how this complements Experience AI as a program. And with that, I'm going to pass over to Liat, my colleague.
Thanks, Alan. So what is AI Quests? AI Quest is a gamified experience. It's a set of quests where students discover firsthand how AI is used in the real world to create positive impact. On the next slide, here are 5 things you should know about AI Quests. First of all, we already said, based on real impact-driven Guru research programs, each quest is built around that program that we work on at Google Research, offering students an authentic look at how AI is developed and used. We take real-world projects and basically translate them into engaging quests for teams. 2, we follow the AI lifecycle, the same lifecycle that is presented in the Experience AI curriculum. So we go from understanding the problem to preparing the data, training the model, testing the model, deploying the model. Each quest follows this AI lifecycle and actually reinforces the learning that kids learn in programs such as Experience AI. And that brings me to the 3rd point. It's designed for educators to deliver in class. Yes, it's a gamified experience, so one might think it's something they can play at home, and they could, but it was designed for in-class usage, and more so it was designed to be part of AI curriculum, such as, and first and foremost, Experience AI. It's grounded in the learning sciences. As you already know, we partnered with the AI Accelerator for Learning at Stanford, and we co-created AI Quests with them so that the quests are really based on the learning sciences and some best practices that they will share in a bit. And finally, it's really important also to know that more quests and more languages are coming. So we launched for back to school in September with our first quest on flood forecasting in English. 2 more quests are in the oven, and we're just a couple months away from releasing those. And then at the beginning of 2026, we will also add additional languages to those quests. Next slide, please. To give you a glimpse of AI Quests, we'll present the intro video that the students see when they first start AI Quests. We see Sky, the in-game AI mentor, introduce the students to the game's goal. Let's play it.
Welcome to AI Quests. My name is Professor Sky, an AI expert and your mentor throughout this learning experience. We've been waiting for someone like you. You're about to begin a journey through our world. As you travel, you'll meet different inhabitants and learn about the challenges in their communities. Your mission is to help them by applying powerful AI responsibly to their problems. Each quest will teach you about a real-life AI research project that's making an impact back on Earth. The AI technology you'll experience is amazing, but it's not magic. Success depends on the decisions you make. You'll need to collect good data, train your AI to make smart choices, and test it to make sure it's reliable. The universe is counting on you. Are you ready?
Great. So you got to see a little bit of AI Quest, and as Alon mentioned, it's already live, and you can also play it after our webinar today. But let's talk a little bit about what happens in the backstage. So what's the process behind transforming complex research efforts into interesting, engaging, understandable experiences for teams? So our first step is really choosing the topic. We have so many fascinating Google research projects to choose from, and we intentionally select ones that give students a diverse perspective on both the impact area. We have, from climate to health to science, and also in the specific AI technology used in each of these projects. Then next, we partner with the Stanford Accelerator for Learning for pedagogy, as well as Phantom Studios for creative development. We work with them to translate the scientific principles of learning into an engaging and effective quest for teams. Then we build each quest with 3 core pillars in mind. The impact narrative, so that's the why. What is the real world problem that we're trying to solve? Then the AI foundation, the how, the technology and AI at its core. And then the game mechanics, the fun bit, right? What makes it engaging and interactive for students so that they would want to play more and learn more about AI. Once a quest is ready to play, we test it with students through teachers just like you. One of them is the amazing Dave, who you will hear from in a bit, and some other teachers who tested it may be in the audience here today. Thank you all so much for your contribution, and expect an email soon about the next quest that we want to test. Then we have the quest ready for students to use worldwide, hopefully very soon. Now I'll pass the mic to Victor to tell us more about the pedagogy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liat, and Alon earlier. So I'll be speaking on behalf of our team at Stanford, which includes Kristen and Joba, who you may have seen earlier, but we'll all be happy to field questions. Now, as educators, you may have been hearing a lot of the conversations that are happening across the world about the importance of thinking about how we educate in ways that draw from the decades of research that have been coming out of cognitive science and the learning sciences about the mechanisms by which humans learn and the most effective learning designs to support that learning. This is an area that is near and dear to our team at Stanford Accelerator for Learning. We ourselves have been involved in those lab-based studies, classroom-based studies, imaging studies, and so on. And today is not the day for me to give a graduate lecture on learning mechanisms, but what I will tell you in a abbreviated format, I think is going to resonate for many educators, because a lot of this validates through scientific inquiry the wisdom that you've accumulated, but also helps to demystify some of the processes and strategies that we have used in helping to develop AI quests. Now, one of the things that I do want to put out front is that within the decades of research in the learning sciences, what we know is that some of our most powerful and enduring learning throughout our lives comes from play and contextualized experiences. Too often what happens in school are decontextualized questions and problems that students have a hard time transferring into the messy context of real life, and it oftentimes can feel sterile, Whereas when we play, we use our imaginations, we take risks, we come up with creative solutions to things. And this is something that we are very intent on fostering. And there are ways that we know from different studies, experiments, and interventions that those can be integrated into a digital learning environment and into the supportive classroom that does this as well. Next slide, please. Now, anyone who's also done instructional design may be familiar with the challenge of focusing on contextualized experiences is that context brings in so many things to know about and think about, and it can be very overwhelming for somebody who is encountering all the information for the first time. Now, some of the best practices that are now adopted as standard at the top educational and instructional design organizations is a backwards design process, which identifies first an enduring understanding, the central goal that you want to make sure you stay focused on, and then think about ways in which all the other important ideas are encountered and supportive, but do not detract from the core big idea that we want to make sure that the learner or student gets. And in this particular case, for AI quests, throughout all the quests, the enduring understanding is about how humans can initiate and design AI applications that can address some of humanity's biggest unsolved challenges. Now, I want to unpack that for just a second right now, is to know that humans' involvement in AI is more than just downloading an app or using it or talking to a chatbot, but rather, as Google Research's experience and projects show, the initiation and design involves really understanding the nature of the challenge, what resources are available, what are the kinds of data that are needed, and what are the limitations that are associated with different kinds of data because they fit the context and the challenge and the problem. It involves checking and verifying the veracity or trustworthiness of the data and engaging with all these different human judgment decisions that need to be made in order to support the development of AI. And even when the AI is developed, this is a very extended iterative process that requires expert judgment and human involvement and thinking about how AI works in a larger workflow when humans are ultimately making important decisions that impact their own and other people's lives. So when we talk about initiating and designing and humans' role in that, we're finding all these different places to bring that to life within this game and story context. Next slide, please. Now, I'm going to start in a counterclockwise order in talking about a few of the learning sciences-based strategies that have been built off of prior research and prior techniques that our colleagues in the field have helped develop. So on the bottom right, I want to emphasize situated learning. So I mentioned before how the contextualization is incredibly important. As educators, you may certainly be aware that many times students learn something in class and you hope that they'll use it later on in their lives, but that's its own challenging task to bring it to life in there. And oftentimes it's because the learning is not situated in the actual context of use, where students see the nature of complex problems, the kinds of tools and decisions that need to get made, and how to activate the knowledge that you're focusing on in those particular contexts. So having this AI Quest experience and contextualized structure is really important for seeing why things happen the way that they do, what kinds of tools and decisions need to get made, and what are the complex considerations, which in other situations may distract from being able to apply that knowledge. And so now we really focus on fostering that knowledge in context. So that way it is really well developed and connected to the complexities of the real issue. Moving up from that, you've heard a little bit about Professor Sky. You may have seen a brief video, and you've seen some of the characters who are really fun characters to see, and the design is really charming. Kids are responding incredibly positively, but there's this whole field of work that is known as pedagogical agents, where we think a lot about how digital characters can be intentionally designed to serve very particular learning roles and very particular learning supports. So what we have done extensively throughout AI Quests is design the agents in ways that structure the narrative or deliver key information at just the right times, or create opportunities to provide students with that sense of responsibility and empathy, and also find additional mechanisms beyond text and beyond the consequences of the game to show uptake and feedback and the importance of that. And so there are many interesting dynamics in which the social learning that we're so adept at as humans gets represented and intentionally structured in the game. Part of this is on the top left, using embedded feedback and productive failure, other common terms that are starting to move around education circles that you've likely heard. But feedback is so critically important for learning to understand the cause and the effect and what are the different relationships within a system. And in AI, which involves technical and human systems, incredibly important. So we look at this as an opportunity and play as a space to make mistakes, because learning through mistakes and being able to try again and build a more robust understanding is key. So that is an intentionally designed structure within this game experience to also take advantage of the game mechanics that Liat had talked about that encourage trying again and motivating that continued progress. Finally, although there are more that you can see in documentation elsewhere, we leverage something called the self-explanation effect. Studies on experts for how they process new and complex information is through a process of self-explanation, which basically means to pause every now and then and to articulate for yourself what's going on and what you're understanding at that time. And so we've integrated something called learning tickets that are very carefully embedded in dialogue interactions with different pedagogical agents to leverage the self-explanation effect with feedback built into that. So that's just an example of some of the different features that we bring in from the learning sciences that integrate the game design, the entire adventure experience, and the cognitive science and learning sciences principles that are involved in really supporting student learning. Next slide, please. Finally, implementation is a robust area of research, and what we know for sure is that, especially with AI, full of new content and new ideas, but also true for any new lesson, is that teachers are instrumental in making this a success. And there are many questions that teachers have when working with new materials or new content. There is a desire for many resources that can fit into the teaching routines, whether it's going to be guidance slides or prompt questions that are going to be tested and effective to use with students. And so one of the things that we've been very proud to be part of and stress the importance of is teacher guide materials that reflect the pedagogical design approach, include game walkthroughs, although we do encourage you to play the game yourself, to unpack some of the different phases and cognitive strategies that are involved, as well as different guidance recommendations for prompts that you may give to students, how you might want to engage with students before, during, and after the gameplay, and connections that you may think of for other extended lessons or other resources that are available out there. So those are all available online with the AI Quests game itself. With that, I would love to tell you even more, but I think that it's an opportunity best understood by playing and going through the experience yourself. In the meantime, I'm going to pass back to Rihanna, who can tell you a bit more about how this aligns really nicely with some of
Thank you so much, Victor, for that incredible explanation, and I'm sure we would love to have you speak about this matter for longer as well. So you might wonder, how does the AI Quest that Victor and Liat and Elon talked about so nicely, how does AI Quest, which is an incredible game, fit into our Experience AI resources? Well, I'm going to give it over to Emma, who will give you a little bit more of an overview about that as well. Over to you, Emma.
Thank you. So we've got 4 units in our Experience AI resources, and the first one is all about the foundations of AI, and it teaches students with absolutely no prior knowledge all about what AI is and the risks and challenges of AI. Then we also have a unit about large language models, again about what they are and how to use them. Our first cross-curricular unit is about ecosystems and AI. And then the last one is all about AI safety. So it's about data privacy, media literacy, and using AI really responsibly. Well, we decided that because Foundations of AI was all about how to use AI and how to actually create AI itself, this would be a brilliant place to put the AI Quests adventure. So we decided to embed it into the Foundations of AI unit. So the quest that we use is the Market Marshes quest, which involves the character of Luna, who is trying to protect their market from flooding from the Sasa River. And Luna is a really gorgeous character who students immediately build empathy with and want to help. And they want to build an AI system that's going to help Luna protect her market from the adverse weather that's actually happening. And we can actually go through the stages of the AI project lifecycle with Luna. So instead of it just being something very theoretical and quite dry, we can actually use this to make it a much, much more interactive experience for the students, which makes it much, much more fun and more memorable and a much better learning experience for them. So these are the project lifecycle stages that we go through. And in the first one, defining the problem, we have to decide who the users are. So in this case, the users are going to be the market stall holders. And we also have to decide what the problem is. And so the students know that the problem is that we have to save the market. And Luna needs to be able to make really accurate predictions or have accurate predictions of the weather, which they can't get from the current weather forecast. And so they need to have an AI system created for them that's going to predict the weather accurately enough that Luna can actually save the market for the rest of the villagers. Then the next stage is preparing the data. And the students will collect the data themselves. So they'll actually explore this world and find different bits of data that they can collect. And it might be rainfall, it might be humidity, it might be solar radiation. And they go through and they click on the data, and then they have to transfer that data over. And some of this data won't actually be as useful as other bits of data, which comes into it a little bit later. But some of the data that they might collect could be gossip, for example, or sorbet sales, whereas other bits of data is going to be much more useful to them, like rainfall, for example. And then they have to go through a process of cleaning the data. So they have to learn what that actually even means, and then they have to clean the data themselves. And then they have a learning ticket. So the scientist character, Sky, asks them a multiple choice question about cleaning the data. So at that point, there's a really good opportunity to test their learning, to make sure that they've actually learned something from the gamification of the project lifecycle. So once they've talked about preparing the data, the next thing they have to do is they have to actually choose the data that they want to train their model on. Now, all of this is showing them how the human is involved in this process. So it means that the student comes away knowing that decisions are being made by developers when they're creating this AI model, which is really, really important for the student who might have an idea that AI is kind of a system that's created by itself, or that humans don't have much involvement in it. But by actually them choosing the data that the model is going to be trained on, they realize that someone else has to make that decision when they're creating their AI model. Also, through choosing the data, they have to decide what's important. So will sorbet sales really actually give them a good model that's going to be able to predict the rainfall that's going to create flooding? Probably not. But if they do choose the wrong data, then later on in the process, they get a chance to try again, which means that, again, they understand kind of the iterative nature of testing and going back and trying again. And it also gives them a chance to have another go as well. So they're choosing the data that they want to train their model on. They then train the model. And there's a lovely animation that sort of shows how this data is being used to sort of identify data patterns, and then that creates the model. And after the model's been created, they can then test it. And it's made really clear that the data that's being used to test the model is historic data. So data where we already know whether there's been a flood or not, but it's data that hasn't been used in the training. And again, there's another learning ticket at this point to just check that the students have learnt and understood what's being covered in the animation. And if it shows them that actually their model is less than 70% accurate, at this point they can go back and they can choose different data to train their model with, and they can try again, which is super important because that's what happens in real life. So developers will test their model, and if it isn't accurate enough, they might have to go back and collect more data or choose different data and then retrain their model and test it again. And so again, it's giving them a really valuable insight into how AI models are actually created in the real world. So once they've tested their model, they then evaluate their model, and they can place their market stalls in different areas. And then they can see whether that's actually worked. So whether the market has been saved using their AI model, because the AI model gives them really valuable information about where the flood's going to be at its worst. And so they shouldn't put market stalls in that area, or they should put market stalls that are higher in that area. And when they're happy with their model, the next stage of the process is to actually use something that Google calls a model card to explain it. And again, this is very important for students because they realize that developers have to have a method of being transparent and actually being able to explain what their model is, what its intended purposes are, who the intended users are, what kind of limitations there might be. So, for instance, in this example, it would only be something that would be relevant to a tropical area that is a victim of river flooding, but it wouldn't be very useful in an urban area. So that's one potential limitation. And on the model card, you also have to put the data that's been used. So that's very important data for the users, that they actually know how this model has been developed, and the accuracy measurement again as well. So they know how accurate this model is and that it's actually been tested. Another really useful thing about this is that students love the real life, the fact that it's a real life problem. There aren't that many people out there who have not been affected by flooding in some way. And they know that it comes from Google. And I was a teacher before, and I know that the students will see something that's been created by Google, which is obviously at the cutting edge of AI research, as something very, very valuable. And they'll really, really enjoy playing it because of that reason. So, okay, so now I'm going to invite Dave onto the stage, please. And Dave, you've been using this in your classroom with your pupils. So could you give us a little bit of an idea about how it's gone and sort of the reactions that the students have had to this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Emma. Hello, everyone. I've got to start by saying I think I'm quite typical of not only computing educators, but probably most educators everywhere, where we are really considerate of having a thinking where students are going to be in the future and the things that are going to affect them. And the reason that we wanted to get involved with this as a kind of pilot school was thinking about those future digitally literate citizens. We've had a really good experience. We're really fortunate. Some of the things that Emma mentioned about the buzz from the students of being involved and being associated with Google have been quite fortuitous. We originally got involved with the Experience AI kind of trial, and we embedded it in Key Stage 3 for our Year 7, so age 11 to 12 in the UK, and the students really enjoyed it. We found it was really accessible. It really gave them a solid foundation for kind of moving forward into higher education. And then we were really fortunate that some of the team from Google Research came out to our school and spent some time doing one-to-one sessions with students and gaining some really valuable feedback in some of the early builds of AI Quests. That was absolutely amazing. They were able to see that students found it, again, intuitive. There was sufficient challenge for younger students. We've since trialled it with older students who started on a GCSE around about age 14, 15, who also found it really engaging. And again, suitable levels of challenge. There was then further complements to the wider learning. So we showed this tool to our colleagues, and for example, in our humanities department in school, specifically geography teachers, where they seen massive opportunities to use it, not only in the computing lessons with us, but use it in their own units of work outside of computing. And it kind of goes back to that belief that AI literacy is not just the domain of computer science teachers and computing departments. It's a wider thing where we've all got a moral and ethical responsibility to make sure that we are getting our students ready for the future. The buzz afterwards. So I've had students who come to me following the trials, following classes. More students want to revisit and have a go again. Students who've not even followed our pathway into GCSEs have been really engaged. We've had to produce stickers for student planners because they want to show off at home and say, look what I've done, I've been involved with the Experience AI material and specifically the AI Quest challenges. And we see it moving forward as a really solid foundation for, again, that further learning. So whatever our curriculums may look like in the future, this is the starting point. This is the things we can use to make sure our students are ready for what comes down the line.
All right. Emma, you get to ask the first question then.
Yeah, fantastic, Dave. Thank you so much. And I completely agree. I think like that buzz and the interactivity of the game is so important because it gets the children really, really motivated, and it just really gets them interested. It sparks their interest in AI as well, and how AI is actually, how it's developed and how it comes to be. So it's super important. So we're going to ask a couple of questions now, and if I could ask everybody to come back and join us on the stage. The first question I'm going to pose is, what kind of impact do you hope AI Quests will have in the classroom? So we've heard about the impact that it's having in Dave's classroom. Would anyone like to speak to that? Alon, could I maybe come to you first?
Sure.
What kind of impact would you hope that it would have in the classroom?
Of course, this is such a great question. I think what we would love the impact to be is that it sparks a new dialogue between students and themselves and with educators about the types of challenges that AI could actually address, and perhaps challenges that are kind of lived and experienced by the students, perhaps, where their curiosity leans into their local communities or topics that are close to their heart, and that they get interested, curious, and inspired to contemplate and imagine a world where perhaps AI could address those other challenges similar to the ones that we're showing through the game. At the end of the day, what we want to show them is AI could be a tool to address really complicated challenges that have yet to be cracked and resolved, and that they themselves, by learning, by gaining new skills and knowledge and being curious, could be part of those solutions in the future. So I think that's, at least for me, one of the impacts we want to have. But
Yeah, I think that giving them that insight into how it's developed might actually open their eyes to a career in AI, because they might not have thought of that before. So that would be amazing.
I think what we're seeing, Emma, sorry, just to build on what you just said, I think we're seeing basically AI will be kind of woven into many roles, many jobs, many areas of life. And so even if they don't decide to come work for Google, they may actually think that this will be, have a point of view, a lens on how this will interplay, even if they choose art or music or medicine or any other field of STEM. And so I think it's more about kind of the interplay between society and technology as they grow up and define their own learning journey.
Yeah. I'm going to ask Dave, actually, how have the humanities teachers responded to them? Have they found it really interesting? Because there's a big cross-curricular opportunity here too.
Yeah, they've been really enthusiastic, and the buzz has spread to other departments as well, where we've kind of indicated there will be additional missions. And again, we find it really valuable that we've got opportunities to work with, outside of our subject domains, and they're really keen to see where they can embed it. Again, that understanding that AI is going to affect every facet of our lives. It's going to affect every single subject that we teach in school. So the more we can embed it, not only for students but for staff as well, to enable them to be more AI literate. It's really important. So yeah, they're really keen to see what comes down the line, and really grateful for the things that we've got now to get us started.
Yeah, I can see one of the next missions was about medicine. Was it about eye health, which would be amazing for science and biology? It'd be such a great sort of cross-curricular link there. It'd be incredible. Would anybody else like to speak to that question?
I can jump in. I think just building on what everyone said, I think a goal is that this will help students be more critical and also empowered consumers of AI, as well as people who maybe think about how they might want to develop or deploy AI in creative ways in the future, and taking on this role where they see how humans actually, AI isn't this magic thing that just happens to us. Humans decide how to use it, what problems to solve with it, how to decide how to use its predictions to make decisions, and how choices around data and how it's chosen and processed affect accuracy and fairness and privacy. All of those things are hopefully things that they'll bring with them as they experience AI in their lives outside the classroom.
Yeah, definitely. Because I thought with the 70% accuracy as well, that's really nice because it gives them the chance to talk about, is that high enough? Is that accurate enough, or do you need it to be higher? And so that could create a really big class discussion about the need for accuracy in those AI models and what might happen if it's not accurate enough, sort of what could happen then. So that would be really interesting.
And on that note, Emma, I do want to say that was actually a very extended and intentional design decision that we thought about what are the pedagogical opportunities, what sorts of ideas might students formulate around seeing 70% versus it's accurate, and how could that fit into the classroom discussion and where the teacher might want to take that. So I love that you had mentioned that because there's many subtle details that we thought about to really accurately convey what happens in AI research. But ultimately, we hope that, and I think Dave is in the examples with his colleagues was discussed, is that everybody can see how there's a way for them to be involved or think about AI in a thoughtful, critical, but I think ultimately, if they do get involved, optimistic way, that there are some really interesting challenges that this set of technologies might help us and empower us to address because our abilities are in some ways augmented or enhanced from that.
Amazing. Oh, thank you so much. I'm going to pass over to Rahana now for the next question.
Yeah, and I so agree with the whole inspiring and instilling that sense of curiosity in students. And one of the ways we do that is through AI Quests. But it's also that we hope that through AI Quest, we will leave them with questions that they ask themselves, right, after they interact with the game as well. So what kind of questions do you hope that students will ask themselves after interacting with AI Quest? Maybe not just ask themselves, but ask you, the teacher, or anyone else around them. What kind of questions do we hope that students will ask after interacting with AI Quest? I see some thinking faces. Who would like to jump in?
I'm happy to start on that one, if that's okay. Some of the activities we've done following the Experience AI and the AI Quests that we've used in school, we've used it as a kind of jumping point for developing a lot more oracy and literacy skills in our students. So lots of class discussions about the things they've seen within AI Quests and how it impacts on them, their consideration and reflection for data that they have in terms of like social media use and using things online, using tools and education software in school, and it's enabled us to have some really rich conversations that before they might have had a stigma and a bit of a kind of barrier to discuss, but now they've got a grounding in terms of a lot of the terminology and the understanding of some of the kind of really key concepts. It's kind of enabled them to kind of think about it more, ask about it more, and ask about it in a broader context as well, which for us is really important.
Yeah. And it's so important to demystify these concepts. And Emma alluded to these a little bit earlier when she was talking about the AI life cycle, the AI project life cycle, and how several of these concepts are expanded and you will look into these concepts as well through the challenge and through the mission that you complete in AI Quest. Anyone else who would like to? Joba.
Yeah, I could go on. Yeah. I think one key question here, just building on what Christine said about, them being active participants and, not just using AI, but even being able to like shape it, would be, seeing them ask questions about, what happens if AI, gets something wrong or, doesn't even like behave optimally, and, who is responsible for that, or just even being able to think about how would you, improve this, and being able to critique AI tools they engage with, and like, okay, what are its limitations? How can I improve it? Or at least who might be able to like improve this, or what data even inform this, and just being able to use that to make decisions about, how they use AI, or even how they want to like use it or interact with it. And I just think above all, like with the whole enduring understanding of AI Quest in terms of, real world issues, just seeing students being able to like ask what else might AI be able to like assist with. I think that would really be us being like, okay, hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah, and it's very important to give students the tools and the language to start asking questions as well, right? So, like you said, Joba, if they have the language and they can think and they can start thinking about accuracy, for example, and they can look at all these AI tools that they're interacting with on a daily basis through a lens of like, hey, are these predictions, and like how accurate are these predictions? And it gives an entire different mental schema to look at AI tools from. We also have a question from the chat, unless anyone else would like to answer the question. We have another question from the chat from Heaven about how do you balance learning with gamification? So how can you maximize opportunities for learning in a gamified environment? Maybe I could ask Victor or Joba that question.
Certainly. So, I think one of the core issue here is how are we balancing having too much information versus too little within this game flow? And so I'll point to a couple of quick examples is that you may have seen the training, AI model training animations and the gathering of data. There's a body of research about what students do and don't intuitively get and what are hard ideas to learn in the process of thinking about data and computational processes. So what we've had to think a lot about are what are the kinds of representations, depictions of those ideas that would be the appropriate level of complexity, but not get so detailed or so technical that it pulls away from what is the overall game objective. And so, for instance, we've really thought about what happens in the training of an AI model, such as with a neural network. But we are not going to go into all the complexities of a neural network. So there's ways in which you've intentionally structured that to convey some of those points, but not let that become a digression from the overall objective, which is to try to build a model in response to the problem of flood prediction, or as you'll see in forthcoming quests, predicting eye disease or other specific challenges. And for instance, with data, the nature of data is a very complex and important issue, especially in this day and age when we have data everywhere. And there are really hard, important questions and intuitions to develop there. But what we thought about are what are the ways in which students are seeing and encountering data that represent a good approximation. And in this case, we've used data chips. But there's these really subtle things where you see when you're downloading the data from the data chips that some students who will do it slowly can see some of those sort of Easter eggs of interesting details. Others can mouse over it and see some interesting facts or things to consider in there. But again, that's all thought about with what overarching enduring understanding we're trying to get to needs to stay the focus. We want to make sure that we're building supports in there, that students who want to find out those other bits have good sources, but those do not become the focus and a hindrance to making forward progress in the game. And it's those sorts of decisions and why the enduring understanding plays such a key role, but also with continual iteration, play testing, and knowing sort of what things are going to serve motivational purposes, what are going to serve learning purposes, which ones are essential learning purposes versus which ones will be really lovely for the students or the teacher who wants to go a little bit more in depth on certain segments.
And I'll quickly build on that and maybe connect to the last question as well about what kinds of questions do we hope students will have coming out of these quests. And so I think, as Victor said, there's a careful balance of how much information to include in the quests themselves. But I think one of the goals is that students will be interested in digging deeper into the mechanisms of what does it mean for the AI model to learn? How might different kinds of data lead to bias, at that more mechanistic level? And so that would help prepare them to learn from other kinds of resources like Experience AI might provide to kind of dig deeper into those specific ideas.
In terms of scaffolded learning experiences, I think the AI Quest is one of these very excellently scaffolded games that guide the learning, it situates the learning as well, like Victor alluded to earlier. So yes, thank you all very much. We have a final slide. Yes, thank you very much. So to conclude, I think we can all agree that AI literacy is a very important skill, and all of us talked a little bit about how important AI literacy is and how important it is to equip our younger generations with these skills to understand, to question, to create with AI technologies, but also to have the appropriate and accurate language to be able to understand, question, and create with AI technologies. You saw how AI Quest is designed with a strong pedagogical principle and you saw that AI Quests are designed with strong pedagogical principles to make the learning interactive, meaningful, and fun, and situated in a familiar context. And so together and combined, we can inspire the next generation of problem solvers and critical thinkers. We can inspire the next generation to understand and to question and to create with these AI technologies beyond our imagination. So I thank you all so much for attending today. Thank you so much for joining everyone in the live stream as well. Our wonderful guests from Stanford, from the Google research team. Thank you all so much for joining us. If you wanted to see the AI quests and the Experience AI resources, we have a link over there. It's currently available in the English resources at the moment. And if you wanted to get in touch, there is an email over here, so aiprojects@raspberrypi.org. You can get in touch with any questions that you might have that we didn't answer today. Very excitingly, we have another webinar next week around the same time as now, so 4 p.m. British time, and we're going to be talking with some more researchers from the Google team and some of their game designers who worked on AI Quest and who developed us and who developed the game. So I hope to see you there, and thank you all very much again for joining. Bye-bye.